You know how it is? Certain stories, stories from the streets, they just kind of take hold, right? They get
Hmm.
dramatized in movies, you hear echoes in music, they almost become legends.
Absolutely.
So,
Sometimes it's hard to know what's real and what's well amplified.
exactly.
Then
So, what's the real story behind maybe the flashy image or, the chilling headlines?
that's the core question, isn't it?
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into exactly that. We're looking at the tragic lives of Rich and Donald Porter. We're drawing on some really insightful pieces, mainly from the tragic lives of Rich and Donald Porter.
Yeah, it's a story many people think they know, maybe
Oh.
from pop culture.
Right. And our goal here, our mission for this deep dive, is really to unpack the reality. We want to move past those cultural references and understand the human cost.
The profound human cost, yeah.
It's not just another cautionary tale label. We're digging into the specifics. What made that life seem so alluring? What were the actual pressures, the consequences? It's got lessons that honestly go way beyond that specific time and place.
Definitely. There's a lot beneath the surface.
Okay, so let's start. Let's start with Rich Porter. The material we looked at points to him getting involved, like deeply involved, in the Harlem drug trade really young,
Shockingly young, 12 years old.
12. And he wasn't just, on the sidelines. He apparently rose up pretty fast. What do these accounts really emphasize about why? Was it him, the time, the place?
Well, that's interesting. The sources, they almost immediately frame it less like some kind of gangster success story and more like a setup for tragedy.
A cautionary tale from the get-go.
Exactly. They tie it directly to the dark realities, as they put it, the drug trade,
Huh.
the violence that was just everywhere in Harlem back then.
Yeah.
Late 80s, early 90s. It sets a pretty grim stage.
But it wasn't just him, right? He had partners.
Right. The sources mention Azzi Fisson and Alpo Martinez quite a bit.
Names people might recognize, especially if they've seen the movie Paid in Full, which we should say is a fictionalized version.
A very important distinction, yeah. And connecting that back, the sources really stress that Porter's story, it's kind of a symbol
A symbol of what, exactly?
of the pull, the allure of that life, but also the inherent dangers, the inevitable consequences of getting involved in illegal activities, especially in that kind of environment. It's less rise and more trajectory towards a crash.
Okay, and this trajectory, it takes a really sharp, dark turn. Rich Porter is murdered January 3rd, 1990.
Yeah. His body found the next day, shot multiple times,
And there's that detail. The reports mention he had a lot of cash on him when he was found.
which immediately throws the spotlight onto trust, or rather, the lack of it. Betrayal.
Right, because the person charged and convicted was Alpo Martinez.
His friend, his former partner in the drug trade.
Wow. I mean, that just screams betrayal, greed, the kind of senseless violence the sources keep linking to this whole world.
It really underscores that theme, doesn't it? How those elements are just woven into the fabric of that life.
But, God, the tragedy just keeps unfolding. Maybe the most awful part involves his younger brother, Donald Porter.
Oh, yeah. That's truly heartbreaking.
December 1989, so this is just before Rich is killed. Donnell, who's only 12, gets abducted, kidnapped on his way to school,
12 years old. Just think about that.
pulled into the absolute nightmare consequences of his older brother's life.
And the sources describe him as becoming a casualty of greed and envy himself. An innocent bystander, really.
It powerfully shows the ripple effect, doesn't it? How this stuff doesn't just affect the people directly involved.
No, it tears families apart, it damages whole communities. The devastation spreads far beyond the deals and the violence itself.
So when we step back and look at both their stories, Rich and Donnell, what's the bigger meaning? The sources are pretty clear, aren't they?
Very clear. Their stories became symbolic, deeply tragic symbols of the brutal cost of street life and the drug game in New York.
That exact phrase comes up.
It does. And the core message, really, boiled down from these accounts, is the absolute necessity of staying away from that life, for your own sake, and maybe even more, for the sake of the people you love.
Because their lives just starkly illustrate how betrayal, greed, that senseless violence, it's not just part of the story, it is the story. It defines it and ultimately destroys everything.
Exactly. It's the fundamental nature of it, according to these narratives.
And maybe that's why their story still has such a hold, why it keeps getting referenced in music, why movies like Paid in Full get made.
Hmm.
Because even in the dramatized versions of Beneath the Surface, there's this raw truth about the consequences, the devastating reality that often gets glossed over.
Right, the parts that aren't glamorous at all.
Yeah. So this deep dive, it really brings home those harsh realities, doesn't it? Behind the headlines, behind the movie portrayals, it's a heavy reminder of the cost.
A huge cost on the individuals, the families, the whole community.
What we're left with from these sources is this picture, this really vivid picture of lives just tangled up in distrust, greed, violence.
Yeah, senseless violence.
Right.
And it really hammers home a message, a tough one, about choices and where they lead. The consequences can be so profound, so tragic.
We've seen how that initial draw, that allure, can just completely flip into danger, into loss you can't undo. So thinking about all this, for you listening, what really stands out about that cycle of violence and betrayal we see here? And maybe what does it make you think about the bigger forces, the systemic things that might still be setting people up for these kinds of tragic outcomes today? Something to really chew on.